Hello, ladies and gentlemen. My name's Stepsbasic, and welcome back to what am I doing? Welcome back to my community show. So, I figured New Year's coming up. I don't do these very often, and I figured, what the heck, I'll do something like this. You know, it's the best, the mest, and the worst lists of 2019. But first, of course, announcements. I'm back. Took a little bit of a break there. It was kind of nice, actually, for the last few days, not having anything to upload, not having to worry too much about anything. But I'm anxious to get back into actually recording. Internet's back up, doing better. Still have no capture card. Have to wait till next month till I can buy a new one. I haven't tested anything out on the old one yet to see if it's working or not. But I feel like it's pretty much dead right now. Been having the issues and everything, which means unfortunately we're gonna have to wait a little bit longer before we can get some more Minecraft, Warframe, and God of War. Technically I could do the Minecraft, and the God of War didn't come out too awful bad. It was just a bit grainy, and the frames per second were a bit off, and there was a bit of blurs and whatnot that shouldn't have been there. And I kind of want to finish it on a good note. I don't want to finish it all bleh. I want to finish it good. High quality, high quality H2O and whatnot. But in the meantime, I'm going to start up Portal 2 next week, as well as get back to Thimbleweed Park, which hopefully I can finish up. I'm not going to finish it up before the end of the year, but But anyway, that's all for the announcements for today. And so on to the video itself. Like I said, I'm borrowing a page from Zero Punctuation here. I'm doing the worst, the mest, and the best. If you don't know what that means, the games I didn't like, the games I thought were disappointing, and the games I really liked. Now, we're going to do something a little bit different today, because, this isn't just the end of a year, it's the end of a freaking decade. And that doesn't happen very often. I mean, this will be my fourth one, and I'm like, geez, I'm not even 40 yet, and I've gone through 4 decades. So we're going to do not only for this year, but also for what I've seen over the decade. Now, I may miss a few things, but there are a few rules that we have to go over. First of all, we are limiting it to only games that I've played. So even if there were games that came out that looked amazing or were amazing and I haven't played them, then I can't really voice my opinion on them. And so I won't. I mean, that leaves out things like Borderlands 3 and Control, which looked really good. Good number of games that came out that I never got to play. And let's get into this list. Let's start off with the bad first. And we're going to start with this year and then the decade. So first of all, this year, the game I liked the least was, funny enough, kind of outside of my wheelhouse, but not too far out. It was Wolfenstein Youngblood. I feel like it lost a lot of the magic from the previous ones, and you might notice that when it comes to like the decade one especially, that if it had a name to live up to and it failed to even come close, then the game immediately falls into disappointing, and for me. And Youngblood was just like that. It just felt, I don't know, forced or something, like they were trying to get a new Wolfenstein out because they were advertising Doom. So like, hey, let's throw out another Wolfenstein. People like those two together, right? This just seemed like to me. And the character interactions were tiring after a while. Not to mention the forced multiplayer, even if you weren't playing multiplayer, was just encumbering. If I were to give this game any sort of ranking, I'd just say it was below a 5 on the list of okay. If we're going to go for 1 to 10, I'd say it was definitely below 5. And that was just the disappointment to me. Now, it's really hard for me to give negative reviews on games unless they really feel like there's no heart and soul in the game. And that, unfortunately, is what felt like with this game. And alternatively, also with my 27 or with my of the decade choice, which was Mass Effect Andromeda. Now, not only did this game come out in amidst controversy, which I don't like anyway. I like to keep my games simple and fun. I don't need all the freaking drama or politics that people want to force on the games and whatnot, or on the release of the games. And so Andromeda came out with that immediately in the negative. But I'm like, you know what? I love Mass Effect 1. I love Mass Effect 2. Mass Effect 3 was there. And so I'm going to play Andromeda. And I tried. I really tried. If you look on my channel, I had 3 episodes of it. I think it was 3 episodes of it. And not only was it a glitchy mess, but on release it was a glitchy mess, but the character's severe downgrade from 3, even lower than 2, I feel. Little bit better than 1 as far as graphics were concerned. Now, the landscapes were beautiful. I'm not going to take that away from it. The landscapes were beautiful. But at the same time, the game felt like it was trying to rehash old stories. And considering everything, there was so much more potential in the universe than what we'd already seen in the Mass Effect universe. And so them going ahead and just trying to rehash everything from the first game into this new game just felt bleh. And then there was the dialogue, clunky at best, wooden at worst, and I'd say robotic at worst. And they had characters whose voices didn't match the characters that they were playing. So the voices that they had didn't match the characters. So like, Solarians. They high-pitched, talking really fast and whatnot.
Who's that? Pilot? No. Synthesized voice. Simulated emotional inflections. Could it be? No. Maybe. Have to ask. Is that an AI?
Always a bit technical and very quick and very speedy. And then they had a Solarian in Mass Effect Andromeda who talked a bit slower. His voice was a little deeper.
There's no need for modesty. Success affords leverage over those who doubted you.
And therein lies the biggest problem to Mass Effect Andromeda, in my opinion, was that it completely lacked heart and soul. They took everything that made the original games good and just chucked it out. All the stuff, all the fun stuff, and then they tried to duplicate it and failed miserably. So that's why that one ranks as my least favorite game of the entire decade. And yeah, there's a lot of games to go through in the decade, and I bounced around a few times, but landed on that one. Now let's talk about the Meh-est games of the year and the decade. First of all, people may not agree with me on this, but Apex Legends for 2019 was my Meh-est game. Kind of a disappointment. And I think part of this is due, in fact, to, one, my own biases. I don't like the Battle Royale format. I don't like any games like that. I've tried them all, and I've never enjoyed them. But also, it was meh because it was... Everyone was building it up like, oh my God, this will be the great Fortnite killer. This is so much better than Fortnite. Oh my God, everyone loves this. And I got into it with higher hopes. And it turns out to be just the exact same, except in this case, you have 2 other people with you. And I felt no impulse to keep playing, no desire to enjoy it. And it's like, okay, I didn't hate it, but it didn't tickle any fancies, as it were. So moving on to the Meh-est game of the entire decade. Now, it's funny when you go through an entire decade's worth of games and you think about best and worst, it's really easy, Which game did I play that I absolutely hated? Which game did I play that I absolutely loved? And settling on one that you had no emotional attachment to is kind of a difficult task. But I had to say that it was Destiny. Released in 2017. Destiny was... It was another game that had a lot of potential to it, but then it fell incredibly short. Like the story was lacking. You had to go out of the game itself to find the story, and it was mostly just a grind fest at best. And well, I'd say at best it might be a game you and your friends can play together and you could get enjoyment out of it. But as a person who doesn't often play multiplayer stuff, there was little to nothing in it for me. It was an MMORPG that could not be played solo. And, well, I mean, it could be played solo, but then you're even in for more disappointment. And therein lies my biggest problem, is where there is potential that is missed, I'm immediately on the side of it. Now, you may remember I actually made a video addressing missed potential with the game called The Witness, and I'd say that would be a good example of how I feel when there's missed potential. If you look back at that video, the missed potential is actually the pun in the title. But it was Destiny was just like that, and it was kind of fun, but for the most part, it got boring fast. So I put it away fast, and I ground up a character all the way up to max, and then I was just kind of like, meh. I had no attachment to it at all, which was different compared to other MMOs like World of Warcraft. I had plenty of connection to my characters in that because they were me, they were my characters, and I had stories and everything for them. But the characters that I put forth in Destiny, I just felt no attachment to at all. So there you go. Meh. Now, I wanted to end this on a good note. A high note, as it were. I want to end it with the best game of the year and of the decade, because I don't want to go into the new year without happiness and whatnot. So this one was tricky for me to pick because I didn't play a lot of the new games this year. I didn't play a lot of the new games because money and everything, and the games I was really looking forward to, I didn't get much of a chance to play. But in spite of my dislike for sequels and whatnot, Resident Evil 2 takes best game of the year for me. Because not only was it taking a universe that I loved, increasing its value by adding better graphics, more content, better characters, better rounded story, but they didn't fail. It wasn't just a cash grab, at least not to me. It didn't feel that way. It felt like the people who worked on this were people like me. People who had played the original Resident Evil games and said, I love this and I want this to be the best it can be. And that's what it felt like to me when they took Resident Evil 2 and they remade it for the newer generation, the newer consoles. It looked beautiful. The action scenes, you felt tense. The zombies, I had some issues with how your bullets worked on them, but at the same time, it really felt scary, felt like a good horror game should feel. Give you that tension, that sweat and everything, and you're like, "Urgh." And they just knocked the game out of the park. Beautiful game. Easily my best game of the year. Best game of the decade, however, I can't claim my favorite game in the world because it came out, well, a while ago, 97. But this game, this game came out in 2013 on the PS3. And I remember I got it. I played it on Father's Day. The first time I played that game was on Father's Day, and that established that this game is not going to be nice to you. And that was The Last of Us. Easily my game of the decade was The Last of Us. An emotional ride filled with danger and feelings and emotions. A deep story One that doesn't take the usual route of everything's going to be good in the end, because they took the horror game aspect to it and they played it how it should go. There is no happy ending in horror. I'm sorry. And like, they took Joel, your character, they never portrayed him as a good guy. So anyone who went into that game after even the first, after, let's say, into Act 2, and thought that they were playing as a good character, were sorely mistaken. At best, he was an anti-hero. At worst, he was just trying to survive. And that's the sort of thing that you look for in a game like that. You know, you don't look for wholesome goodness, because wholesome goodness tastes really sweet to zombie folks who like to eat ya. And therein lies the aspect to it, because they didn't rely on trying to make him into a good person. But what they did was they focused on the father-daughter relationship between Joel and Ellie, and they hit it, you know. At first she was an annoyance, and then he grew to love her, and then he grew to be, you know, she is my daughter, you touch her, you die. And yeah. And the personal connections in the games, even the ones that are fleeting, felt impactful. Sam and his older brother, and the bites and everything, and you're like, oh my god, how did I knew you guys for 2 seconds. Why do I miss you now? Why did that hurt so bad? There you go. Those are my best, Meh-est, and worst games of 2019. Now, I know people may not agree with me. I know The Last of Us, there are people who fervently dislike it, and some people who just dislike it because principle. But, you know, I'm always open to other people's opinions. These are my opinions, and if you want to share your opinions, you're more than welcome to down there. But apart from that, we're moving into the new freaking year, 2020. Why already? I'm old. But anyway, that's it for me for today. Thank you all so much for joining me for this episode of the Community Show. Hopefully you enjoyed it, and if you did, please go and poke that like button for me. If you'd like to see more from me, make sure to hit that subscribe button, and of course, as always, you're more than welcome to comment down in the comment section down below, and I'll get back to you as soon as I can, when I can, if I can, you know, all that jazz. And tune in next time for another episode. Next year, in fact, will be when we come back for this. But yeah, until then, good night.